So after laying down the law on his first week on the job, can the new chief of staff continue to keep the White House under control? Let me bring in my doctor-approved party panel tonight. She's former Miss America and host of the Sonder podcast. Kirsten Hagelin is here. He's a host of You're Welcome and author of Dear Reader, the unauthorized autobiography of Kim Jong-il. Michael Malice is back. And host of The Richard Fowler Show. He's a Fox News contributor. Richard Fowler is also here. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Let's start off the week with glory and gigantic theoretical hugs. Richard, I will start with you. Democrats are optimistic about the prospect of John Kelly.
Yeah, hopefully he can.
Why do they like him?
Hopefully he can reign this president. Maybe.
Do they really want that, though? Don't Democrats love the chaos?
No, I mean, I think
they want to stoke the fires a little bit.
No, I just want the president to do his job and be the president of the United States for a second and stop tweeting. And hopefully he'll do that.
President Obama used Twitter.
Yeah, not as much as this guy.
And Bumble.
Not quite the same way.
Now
quite
you say that General Kelly is already improving morale.
Oh, already. And it's interesting, even just, you know, for anyone, of course, who has a military member in their family, right, as I do, as many Americans at home watching do, you know that these guys go in, they know how to run a tight ship, right? My own father raised us that way, and he's already doing that. Jared and Ivanka even report straight to him, not necessarily straight to the president.
That was one of the big questions. Was he going to stand between the Steve Bannon, Jared Kushner, and Ivanka Trump?
Yes.
And the president.
And you know what? A lot of these leaks, which have been such a problem for the administration, are due to the fact, and many insiders report this, that, you know, there are some people, especially those in the intelligence community, who have disdain for the president, kind of a bad morale. So you get someone in there to kind of bring the team together, it improves morale, and there's less likelihood of leaks.
I think it's going to be very hard for anyone to run a tight ship in this White House when you have a leaky boat. I don't think Trump has a coherent ideology. I think he's very responsive to the balls that are being thrown at him, and he doesn't have that kind of vision that, let's say, President Obama or even George W. Bush did. So, and leaks...
Does that engender some sort of loyalty in and of itself? Being an ideologue, being tethered to a political philosophy, having a vision, is that why you're seeing so many leakers?
Well, I mean, you saw leakers in the W. White House, you saw leakers in the Obama White House.
Not as many, though.
I think because people don't know what to make of him, and frankly, how would someone with no political experience expect to be president 6 months in? This is a very difficult job. It's probably the most difficult job to kind of learn as you're doing. So of course they're going to be leaking, because on the one hand, I'm sure they're talking to their reporter buddies, being like, "Can you believe this? Because I don't. Are you seeing this? Because I can't
think
believe what I'm
that's
seeing."
what Scaramucci was doing with Brian Lizzo. He was going like, "Bro, this is crazy."
It's worse than you think.
Well, also there are reports from inside the administration that a lot of people have said they leak to the media because they know the president pays so much attention to the media.
That's sad.
That
That's like getting in trouble with the principal, so your mom actually talks to you.
I agree with both of them.
Okay, go ahead. Break down.
No, I agree with them.
That's all? That's it? That's all Richard Fowler has to say?
Yeah, because they're both right. I mean, the problem that this president has is that he leaks too much, and beyond the fact that he leaks, is that a lot of times what you end up happening is the leaks turn into this White House just straight lying. Like he said, the president, like, so Sarah Huckabee Sanders goes out there and she's like, the president never weighed in on the Don Jr. statement. Then they're like, oh, but he did weigh in.
I mean, he wrote it, but he didn't.
Which is a lie.
There's a difference.
Right? And so what ends up happening is like, oh, well, he really didn't lie, but they're just lying, and that's problematic. When the leader of the free world lies, it decreases our credibility around the world.
I don't know what I would do if we had a president who told the truth. Have we ever had one?
George Washington.
Probably not.
Oh, that is sweet.
Yeah, but I mean,
and Ronald Reagan.
And Honest Abe, right?
This is
the
just,
butcher.
We're only 7. I mean, I feel as though he's been president for like 3 years. He's been president for like 6.
I know.
3 more years.
It's like when you're on a diet and you feel like you've been on it forever.
And you only been on it for a day.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite, I guess. That was a bad analogy. On Saturday, the United Nations Security Council unanimously passed heavy sanctions on North Korea in response to their 2 recent intercontinental ballistic missile tests. The sanctions prohibit many of the country's exports and are expected to cost the Hermit Kingdom about $1 billion a year in revenue. The country's official news agency put out a strongly worded statement in response, saying, quote, "We will make the U.S. pay by 1,000-fold for all the heinous crimes it commits against the state and people of this country." Michael, what do sanctions do?
This is actually might be one of the cases where sanctions will work, because it's not going to affect North Korea per se, but it will affect China. China has been historically the one agency that's been able to change North Korea's behavior. For example, for decades, North Korea fought having North and South Korea both allowed into the UN because that, in effect, makes permanent their separation. North Korea regards Korea as one nation, with South and North being different regions. That's why they write North with a lowercase s and South with a lowercase s. China, during the 80s, after South Korea got the Olympics, we were like, you know what, let's let South Korea in, and that's when North Korea went in as well. So when China sees an international community united with them, that is going to, in some way, force them to do something, and it also won't allow Kim Jong-un to say, it's us, North Korea, versus the evil U.S. imperialists. Now it's us versus the entire world, which is a very different dynamic.
So you're saying these are different kinds of sanctions because they're on exports, on things like iron and iron ore and seafood. Are those things that China consumes from North Korea?
I'm just saying it's different kind of sanctions because it's not just us doing it unilaterally, but it's a kind of
unanimous vote from the UN Security Council. All right. So, Richard, and I want Michael to address this as well. You were saying today on Outnumbered, when we were on the couch together, that you want this president to reach out to North Korea as a rational actor and give him a hug.
No, not necessarily reaching. I don't think they're a rational actor. I just think that we, at some point in time, have to. We've tried sanctions in the past. We've tried. I think at some point in time, we have to look them in the eye and say, listen, let's have. You
said that the U.S. has never properly sat down with.
Yeah, I think we need to sit down and have a conversation with them. I think we did it with the Soviets. Nixon did it with the Soviets, and that's how we slowly moved to the end of the Cold War, right? And I think. Can
you compare North Korea to the Soviet Union or any other country that we've warmed relations with?
Sure, you can compare it in one sense, because the Soviet Union were kind of our peers. But if we went to North Korea, I mean, the propaganda there would be like, look, and they boasted about this during the 90s. Like Kim Jong-il said, why do we have to go to other countries when everyone comes here and kisses my ring? You remember when they kidnapped that American reporter, Ling? Bill Clinton had to get his to Pyongyang and kind of take photos with Kim Jong-il, and he said, look, I make American presidents bow down before me. So this would be a very... Hold on, let me finish my point just quickly. I'm saying right away we're giving up something, because right away it's like we're forcing America to come here without a guarantee of a return.
Well, but first of all,
I want to bring in Kirsten, and then you can respond.
What's going to be interesting dynamic to watch here is the idea of talks, because South Korea has a new president, President Moon, and he kind of got elected with a more dovish stance toward North Korea, and saying that he was more likely to pursue negotiations and talks, etc. So to see the Trump administration kind of respond to that, and you saw a little bit from Tillerson, preconditioned but talks. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic that we'll see play out here as well.
North Korea has already repudiated South Korea and saying these calls for talks are false and fraudulent, so they've already hand-waved that away.
China has said, you know, and I want to get your take on this, China has said that there has to be sort of a bilateral deal that North Korea will give up its nuclear program if South Korea and the U.S. stop their joint military operations.
I will be glad giving China whatever they want if they can increase pressure on North Korea and close down the concentration camps, give these people's passports, and give them access to food and information.
So I think there has to be talks. I think Tillerson has signaled talks. I think it's maybe 4-party talks or 5-party talks, but bringing everybody to the table and having a conversation, because the alternative are so dire. Because the moment that one of these missile tests hit Japan or hit South Korea, we are in war, period. So the alternative, we can't walk back, so there has to be something.
All right, well, the party panel returns a little bit later. First up, Vice President. To the ground, sing with me, if you know it, and I know you do. Welcome back. By the way, this has to go before the New York State Legislature, the upper chamber, controlled by Republicans, and they're going to shoot it down. Speaking of Republicans, they're supposed to be the party that can't stop fighting, but this summer's Democratic Unity Tour is looking more and more like an Oasis tour, and they don't get along at all. The latest catfight started after former DNC chairman Howard Dean said there's a whiny portion of the Democratic Party that's more concerned with being ideologically pure than actually winning elections. Dean went on to say that this obsession is stopping progressives from pulling together on key issues like health care. He really wants a single-payer system. And it's causing them to turn their backs on the very people they purport to care about. His comments have been roundly criticized, but is Howard Dean right to say that some progressives have placed purity ahead of victory? Let the party panel bask in its glory once again. Kirsten Hegland, Michael Malice, and Richard Fowler. Richard, I will start with you. Are progressives whiny?
That's a good question, Kennedy. I wouldn't say they're whiny. I think we're at a time in our party where we're trying to figure things out and we're trying to rejig our message. And
what's Howard Dean talking about?
Well, I think part of it is we're trying to figure out how we do healthcare, and some people are saying that we need to go to single payer, and I think other people are saying that we need to create some fixes to the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
But I think what we do know, I'm a single payer person, and I think the Affordable Care Act was, what we're seeing now is that the moment that the Affordable Care Act was passed, right, and I think what we see in this sort of GOP fix to the Affordable Care Act, or,
there is no fix.
Or the repeal and replace.
There is no repeal.
Right, but the fact that it was a bailout for insurance companies, I think you're right, shows that once the regulations went in place and that we forced private industry to cover what they didn't want to cover, there is no fix, and you are moving into a single-payer system.
It's actually forcing taxpayers to pay for insurance companies to the tune of dozens of billions of dollars.
But let me make this one point, though. Taxpayers were already paying for people that they didn't want to pay for when you went to the emergency room and people couldn't pay the bill.
Yeah, but it's not even close to being proportional. Michael?
I mean, Howard Dean doesn't know about winning elections, so what the hell is he talking about? And I think whining is not fair because it implies that progressives don't have strong points of view and aren't willing to take strong measures to enforce those points of view. You remember during the Obamacare debate, they were very strong, and they had made a lot of people walk the plank and give up their seats because they're like, this is our chance now or never. So whining is basically a symbol of saying, look, we don't have the votes, we don't have the numbers, we can push for our issues, but really, when you have the Republicans having the Supreme Court, Congress, and the White House, what are they supposed to do otherwise?
Yeah, I think what he's saying is they could be winning more elections if there weren't a progressive purity test. And I think libertarians suffer from that as well.
Yeah, Gary Johnson, so ideologically pure.
I don't think it's not just Gary Johnson. I think we could see there's so many people who are libertarian in this country who don't identify themselves with the party because they actually realize that politics is not going to accomplish libertarian ends by definition. But I think it's the ideologically pure progressives who actually get over much more than the moderates like Hillary Clinton. I think people like Bernie Sanders riles up the base a lot more and gets more excitement. Who have more strong progressive ideas than people who are in the middle. Does that win elections, though?
It certainly changes the culture, and that's the prerequisite to winning an election.
And that's what I think this is all about. And Richard, correct me if I'm wrong, but what's the vision for the future of the party? Because after a party suffers a big loss, like the Democrats did, the Republicans went through this right after 2008, and you saw the rising up of the Tea Party, which was kind of our own, some would say, whiny version of an ideological purity test for conservatives as well. That's how we got the House Freedom Caucus. So they're trying to figure out what's the vision. Is it these more moderate blue dog Democrats that we have to get back on our side? In West Virginia, you just saw that governor switch parties in the Rust Belt, in those Midwest states. So do we have to stay more centrist? Or is the future with the Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren wing of the party? So I think they're going through
It's Venezuela is their vision.
Well, and I think also
that is their vision. I mean, that's the ultimate end. Yes, that's the ultimate end of socialism.
Of course.
When you look at price fixing and relentless government control.
Bernie Sanders, they could not be more turned on by Venezuela when this revolution started.
Okay, we have 5 seconds.
But I think there's also a shift. There's a geographical shifting happening in both parties. The Republican Party used to be the party of the country club and suburban counties like Fairfax County, which is now what used to be red, which is now deep blue, and the Democratic Party used to be rural America, which is now deep red. So there's a shifting happening in both parties, and that's why you see Donald Trump as president, and the Democratic Party is becoming suburban counties. Used to be very
So there you go. That's what happened. All right. Thank you so much, Richard, Michael, and Kirsten. Coming up, Al Gore's sequel to An Inconvenient